Most people are taught to chase goals from a very young age. Get good grades. Get a good job. Earn more money. Lose weight. Build success. The entire structure of modern life is built around targets that sit somewhere in the future, waiting to be reached. At first, this sounds logical. A clear destination should make the journey easier. But in reality, something very different happens. People set goals with excitement. They imagine the result. They promise themselves that this time they will stay consistent. Then slowly, almost invisibly, the energy fades. The routines break. The focus disappears. What once felt like a powerful intention becomes another unfinished attempt. Not because the person is weak, not because they lack intelligence, but because the method itself is flawed. A goal is a moment. A system is a lifestyle. A goal depends on motivation. A system reduces the need for motivation. A goal creates pressure. A system creates structure. This difference is not small. It is the difference between temporary success and lasting transformation. Think about how most goals work. You decide that you want something. You attach your happiness to achieving it. Until that moment arrives, your mind stays in a state of tension. You are either moving toward the goal or failing to move toward it. There is no peace in between. And when you finally reach the goal, the satisfaction is short-lived. Soon, a new goal replaces the old one, and the cycle begins again. This is why so many people feel like they are constantly running, but never truly progressing. Systems change this completely. A system is not about where you want to go. It is about how you live every day. It focuses on the process instead of the outcome. It builds a structure that works even when you do not feel motivated. It creates momentum that does not depend on mood, inspiration, or external pressure. When you shift from goals to systems, something powerful happens. You stop chasing success, and you start becoming the type of person for whom success is natural. Instead of saying, "I want to lose weight," you build a system where healthy eating and movement become part of your identity. Instead of saying, "I want to be successful," you create a system of daily discipline, focused work, and continuous learning. Instead of saying, "I want to be confident," you design a system of small actions that slowly reshape how you see yourself. This approach removes the emotional highs and lows that come from goal chasing. It replaces them with consistency, stability, and quiet progress. You no longer need to rely on bursts of motivation. You rely on a structure that carries you forward, even on the days when you feel tired, distracted, or unmotivated. Many people wait to feel ready before they take action. Systems remove that waiting. They make action automatic. Many people think success comes from big decisions. Systems prove that it comes from small repeated behaviors. Many people believe change happens suddenly. Systems show that it happens gradually, often so slowly that you only notice it when you look back. This is not a theory. It is a reality observed in every area of life. Athletes who train consistently outperform those who rely on talent alone. Students who follow a daily study routine achieve more than those who cram before exams. Individuals who manage their time through structured habits build stronger careers than those who depend on occasional effort. The difference is not intensity. It is consistency. And consistency is not created by willpower. It is created by systems. This book is not about dreaming bigger goals. It is about building a way of living that makes those goals almost inevitable. It is about understanding how to design your environment, your habits, your routines, and your mindset so that progress becomes a natural outcome of your daily life. You will not be asked to rely on motivation. You will not be told to simply work harder. Instead, you will learn how to make discipline easier, how to remove friction from good habits, and how to create a structure that supports you even when your energy is low. Because real change does not come from occasional effort. It comes from what you do repeatedly, quietly, and consistently. The moment you stop focusing only on goals and start building systems, you stop living in the future and start taking control of the present. And in that present, repeated day after day, your future is shaped. This is where transformation. Chapter 1. Why goals fail and systems win. From the outside, goals look powerful. They give direction. They create excitement. They make people feel like they are moving toward something meaningful. When someone sets a goal, there is usually a moment of clarity and energy. It feels like a fresh start, a new beginning, a promise that things will finally change. But what happens after that moment is what truly defines the outcome. Most goals do not fail in the beginning. They fail in the middle. At first, the energy is high. The person wakes up early, takes action, stays focused, and feels proud of the effort. But slowly, reality begins to interfere. Life becomes busy. Motivation drops. Distractions appear. The structure that was never built starts to show its absence. What once felt easy now feels heavy. What once felt exciting now feels like pressure. This is where goals begin to collapse. The problem is not that goals are useless. The problem is that goals are incomplete. They tell you what you want, but they do not tell you how to live every day in a way that guarantees progress. A goal without a system is like a destination without a path. Imagine standing at the edge of a long journey with a clear picture of where you want to go, but no plan for how to take each step. You might take a few steps forward, but eventually you will slow down, hesitate, or stop completely. Not because you do not care, but because you do not have a reliable way to keep moving. This is why so many people repeat the same cycle every year. They set goals. They feel motivated. They take action for a short time. Then they stop. Then they feel disappointed. Then they try again. It is not a lack of desire. It is a lack of structure. Goals are outcome-focused. Systems are process-focused. This difference may seem simple, but it changes everything. When you focus only on the outcome, your attention stays fixed on something that does not yet exist. Your happiness becomes dependent on reaching that point. Until then, everything feels like waiting. Every day becomes a test of whether you are getting closer or falling behind. This creates pressure, and pressure does not build consistency. It creates resistance. On the other hand, when you focus on a system, your attention shifts to what you are doing right now. You are no longer chasing a distant result. You are building a daily process that moves you forward automatically. The question is no longer, did I reach my goal? The question becomes, did I follow my system today? That question is far more powerful because it is within your control. One of the biggest hidden problems with goals is that they create an illusion of progress. When you set a goal, your brain feels a sense of achievement just by defining it. You feel like you have already taken a step forward, but nothing has actually changed in your daily life. Your habits are the same. Your environment is the same. Your routines are the same. And those are the things that truly determine your results. A system forces change at the level where it actually matters. It changes what you do when no one is watching. It shapes your behavior on ordinary days, not just on moments of motivation. Consider the difference between someone who says they want to get fit and someone who builds a system around health. The first person sets a goal: lose weight, build muscle, look better. For a few days or weeks, they may go to the gym with strong motivation. But because there is no structured system, their actions depend on how they feel. If they feel tired, they skip. If they feel busy, they delay. If they lose interest, they stop. The second person focuses on a system. They decide that every morning at a fixed time, they will move their body. It does not matter if the workout is perfect. It does not matter if the energy is high. What matters is showing up. They prepare their environment in advance. They remove distractions. They make the action simple and repeatable. Over time, something important happens. The behavior becomes automatic. It no longer requires a decision each day. It becomes part of who they are. The result is not just a temporary improvement. It is a lasting transformation. Another problem with goals is that they create a constant sense of either success or failure. You are either achieving your goal or you are not. There is no middle ground. This creates a harsh mental environment where every small mistake feels like a setback. Systems remove this pressure. They allow progress to exist even when perfection is absent. If your system is to write every day, then even a small amount of writing counts as success. If your system is to study regularly, then even a short session moves you forward. This builds confidence instead of destroying it. Consistency grows when people feel capable. It disappears when people feel like they are constantly failing. Goals also have a hidden side effect. Once they are achieved, the motivation that was attached to them often disappears. This is why people sometimes reach a goal and then quickly fall back into old habits. The structure that supported the progress was never built. The goal acted like a temporary push, not a permanent foundation. A system does not end when a result is achieved. It continues. It evolves. It becomes part of your life. This is why systems create long-term success, while goals often create short-term results. There is also a deeper psychological shift that happens when you move from goals to systems. You stop defining yourself by what you want to achieve and start defining yourself by what you do every day. This is the beginning of identity change. Instead of saying, "I want to be successful," you begin to act like someone who works consistently, learns continuously, and manages their time effectively. Instead of saying, "I want to be disciplined," you create a system where discipline is built into your routine. Identity is not built through intentions. It is built through repeated actions. Every time you follow your system, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. Over time, these small votes accumulate. They shape how you see yourself. And once your identity changes, your behavior becomes easier to maintain because it aligns with who you believe you are. This is something goals alone cannot achieve. Goals can start the journey, but they cannot sustain it. Systems sustain the journey because they operate at the level of daily life. They remove the need for constant decision-making. They reduce the influence of mood. They create stability in a world that is full of distractions and unpredictability. It is important to understand that systems do not remove ambition. They refine it. You can still have a vision for your future. You can still know what you want to achieve. But instead of relying on that vision to carry you forward, you build a structure that does the work for you. This is a quieter form of success. It does not depend on excitement or intensity. It depends on repetition and patience. And while it may feel slower at first, it is far more reliable. Because in the end, your life is not shaped by the goals you set occasionally. It is shaped by the actions you take daily. And those actions are determined by your system. This is why systems win. They turn effort into routine. They turn intention into behavior. They turn short-term motivation into long-term consistency. And once that consistency is established, results are no longer something you chase. They become something that connects. Chapter 2. Understanding systems as daily identity. Most people think change begins with a decision. They believe that if they decide strongly enough, if they feel motivated enough, then their life will start to shift. But decisions are only the starting point. What truly shapes a life is not what you decide once, but what you repeat every day. This is where systems become deeper than just routines or schedules. A real system is not only something you do, it is something that slowly defines who you are. Your identity is not created in a single moment. It is built quietly, through patterns of behavior that repeat again and again. Every action you take is like a small signal to your mind. Over time, these signals form a belief. That belief becomes your identity. If someone studies every day, even for a short time, they begin to see themselves as a learner. If someone shows up to work with focus and discipline, they begin to see themselves as reliable and serious. If someone takes care of their health consistently, they begin to see themselves as a healthy person. This process happens whether you notice it or not. The problem is that most people try to change their identity through goals instead of systems. They say, I want to become confident, or I want to become successful, or I want to become disciplined. But they do not build daily actions that support those identities. As a result, there is a gap between what they want to be and how they actually live. That gap creates frustration. You cannot think your way into a new identity. You have to act your way into it. A system is the bridge between who you are now and who you want to become. It takes a large abstract idea and breaks it into small, repeatable behaviors. These behaviors may look simple on the surface, but their power comes from repetition. When you follow a system, you are not just completing tasks. You are reinforcing a version of yourself. Instead of chasing the idea of being successful, you build a system where you work with focus every day. Instead of trying to feel confident, you build a system where you take small actions that require courage again and again. Instead of hoping to become disciplined, you design a system where discipline is built into your routine, so it does not depend on how you feel. This shift removes a lot of pressure. You no longer need to prove yourself in a single moment. You only need to follow your system today. And when you do that, something important begins to change. Your focus moves away from results and toward consistency. You stop asking, am I there yet? And start asking, did I show up today? This may seem small, but it changes how you experience progress. When people depend on goals, they often feel like they are always behind. The goal is far away, and every day that does not feel perfect seems like a failure. This creates a constant sense of doubt. Systems remove that feeling. They give you a clear standard that is within your control. If your system is to read every day, then reading even a few pages counts. If your system is to practice a skill daily, then even a short session moves you forward. This builds confidence, not because you have achieved something big, but because you are becoming consistent. Confidence is not created by success alone. It is created by trust in your own behavior. When you follow a system repeatedly, you begin to trust yourself. You know that even on difficult days, you will still take action. This trust becomes a quiet form of confidence that does not depend on external results. Another important part of systems is that they reduce the need for constant decision-making. Many people struggle not because they are incapable, but because they are constantly deciding whether to act. Every day becomes a negotiation with themselves. Should I work today or rest? Should I study now or later? Should I go to the gym or skip? These small decisions may not seem important, but they drain energy over time. The more decisions you have to make, the easier it becomes to choose comfort. A system removes these decisions. It creates a structure where the action is already decided. You do not ask whether you will do it. You simply follow the plan. This may feel restrictive at first, but it actually creates freedom. When your important actions are automated, your mind becomes clearer. You no longer waste energy debating with yourself. You simply move. There is also an emotional shift that happens when you start living through systems. Goals often create emotional highs and lows. When you feel motivated, everything seems possible. When you lose that motivation, everything feels difficult. This creates an unstable pattern where progress depends on your mood. Systems create stability. You do not need to feel excited to follow a system. You do not need to feel inspired. You only need to continue. Over time, this steady approach becomes more powerful than any burst of motivation. This is how real transformation happens. Not through dramatic moments, but through quiet repetition. Consider a person who wants to improve their knowledge and understanding of the world. If they rely on a goal, they might decide to learn a lot in a short time. They might watch many lectures, read many books quickly, and push themselves intensely. But this approach is hard to maintain. After some time, the effort becomes exhausting, and they stop. Now consider a person who builds a system around learning. They decide that every day, no matter what, they will spend a fixed amount of time reading or studying. They create a calm and focused environment. They remove distractions. They do not rush. They simply continue, day after day. After a few weeks, the difference may not seem large. But after months, and especially after years, the second person will have built a deep and lasting understanding. Not because they worked harder in a single moment, but because they remained consistent over time. This is the power of systems when they are connected to identity. You are not trying to prove something once. You are becoming something slowly. There is also a hidden advantage in this approach. When your identity is built on systems, failure loses its power. If you miss a day, it does not destroy your progress. It does not define you. It is simply a small break in a long pattern. You return to your system, and the process continues. When your identity is built on goals, failure feels much heavier. Missing a step can feel like losing everything, because your focus is on the result, not the process. Systems create resilience. They allow you to continue, even when things are not perfect. They remind you that progress is not about being flawless. It is about returning, again and again, to the actions that matter. Over time, this builds a life that feels stable and intentional. You are no longer reacting to circumstances or waiting for motivation. You are following a structure that supports your growth. This does not mean life becomes easy. Challenges still exist. Distractions still appear. Difficult days still come. But your response changes. Instead of stopping completely, you continue in a smaller way. You protect the system. Because once the system is in place, everything else begins to align with it. Your habits support your identity. Your identity supports your actions. Your actions support your results. And all of it begins with what you choose to do today, not once, but repeatedly. This is what it means to understand systems as daily identity. You are not chasing a future version of yourself. You are building that version, one day. Chapter 3. Building systems for discipline and focus. Discipline is often misunderstood. Many people think discipline means forcing yourself to do difficult things again and again through pure willpower. They imagine it as a constant battle between what they want to do and what they should do. In this view, discipline feels heavy, exhausting, and unsustainable. But real discipline does not work like that. Real discipline is not built on force. It is built on structure. When your life depends only on willpower, every day becomes a test. Some days you pass, and some days you fail. Your actions rise and fall based on your mood, your energy, and your environment. This creates inconsistency, and inconsistency weakens progress. A system removes this struggle. It changes discipline from something you have to fight for into something that is quietly built into your daily life. Focus works in the same way. Many people believe they lack focus because they are easily distracted. They blame themselves for not being able to concentrate. But in most cases, the problem is not the person. The problem is the absence of a system that protects attention. Discipline and focus are not personality traits. They are outcomes of well-designed systems. To build a system for discipline, the first step is to remove unnecessary decisions. Every decision you make uses mental energy. When your day is filled with choices about when to start, what to do, and how to do it, you create friction. That friction makes it easier to delay action. A simple system begins by deciding in advance. You choose a specific time for your important work. You choose a specific place. You define the task clearly. When the moment arrives, there is no debate. You do not ask yourself if you feel ready. You begin. This may seem basic, but it is powerful because it reduces resistance. The more predictable your actions become, the less effort it takes to start. Another key part of building discipline through systems is to make the starting point easy. Many people fail because they try to do too much at once. They set high expectations, and when they cannot meet them, they feel discouraged. A system focuses on consistency, not intensity. Instead of trying to work for many hours, you build a habit of starting, even if the time is short. The goal is not to impress yourself with effort. The goal is to create a pattern that repeats daily. Once the pattern is established, it can grow naturally. This approach changes how you see progress. You are no longer measuring success by how much you do in one day. You are measuring it by how often you show up. Showing up becomes the most important action. Focus is strengthened in a similar way. It is not something you suddenly gain. It is something you protect. The modern world is full of distractions. Notifications, messages, endless streams of content, and constant interruptions compete for your attention. If you do not design a system to control this environment, your focus will always be broken. A system for focus begins by creating boundaries. You decide when you will work without interruption. You remove or silence distractions during that time. You create a space where your attention can remain on one task. At first, this may feel uncomfortable. Your mind may look for distractions because it is used to constant stimulation. But over time, your ability to stay with a task improves. Focus is like a muscle. It becomes stronger when it is used consistently. There is also an important connection between discipline and identity. When you follow a system repeatedly, you begin to see yourself differently. You are no longer someone who tries to be disciplined. You are someone who acts with discipline. This shift is subtle but powerful. Instead of asking, "How can I force myself to work?" you begin to think, "This is what I do every day." The action becomes part of your normal routine, not something that requires effort to justify. This is how discipline becomes natural. One common mistake people make is waiting for the perfect conditions to start. They wait until they feel motivated, until they have enough time, or until everything feels right. But perfect conditions rarely exist. A system removes the need for perfection. You begin even when conditions are not ideal. You accept that some days will be better than others. What matters is maintaining the pattern. This creates resilience. When you depend on motivation, a bad day can stop you completely. When you depend on a system, a bad day becomes just another day where you continue, even if the effort is smaller. Over time, this builds a strong foundation. To understand this more clearly, consider a person who wants to improve their ability to concentrate on work or study. If they rely on motivation, they might wait for moments when they feel focused. During those moments, they work intensely. But when their energy drops, they stop. This creates an uneven pattern where progress is unpredictable. Now consider a person who builds a system for focus. They decide that every day at a specific time, they will sit in a quiet place and work on one task for a fixed period. They remove distractions before they begin. They keep their environments simple. They do not expect perfect focus. They simply return their attention to the task whenever it drifts. At first, their focus may not be strong. Their mind may wander often. But because they repeat this process daily, their ability to concentrate improves. What once felt difficult becomes easier, not because they change suddenly, but because their system trained their mind over time. This is the difference between relying on effort and relying on structure. Another example can be seen in someone who wants to become more disciplined in managing their time. If they depend on goals, they might decide to be more productive and plan to complete many tasks. For a few days, they may work with high energy. But without a clear system, their schedule becomes disorganized. They lose track of priorities, and their productivity drops. Now imagine they build a system. They decide in advance what their main tasks will be each day. They set specific periods for focused work. They create a simple routine for starting and ending their day. They review their progress regularly, not to judge themselves, but to adjust their system. With this approach, their productivity becomes stable. They are not working harder in a dramatic way. They are working consistently in a structured way. This is what systems do. They turn unpredictable effort into reliable action. It is also important to understand that discipline does not mean removing rest or enjoyment from your life. A good system includes balance. It allows time for recovery, reflection, and relaxation. Without balance, any system will eventually break. The goal is not to create a rigid life where every moment is controlled. The goal is to create a supportive structure where your most important actions happen regularly, without struggle. Focus and discipline grow best in an environment that is both structured and realistic. As you build your system, you will learn what works for you. You will adjust your routines. You will simplify where necessary. This process takes time, but it leads to something valuable. A life where your actions are not controlled by mood or distraction. A life where progress is steady. A life where discipline is not something you chase, but something you live. In the end, discipline and focus are not about pushing yourself to the limit. They are about creating a system that makes the right actions easier and the wrong actions harder. When that system is in place, you do not need to rely on constant effort. Your structure carries you forward. And that is where real consistency begins. Chapter 4. Systems for Health, Productivity, and Learning. Most people approach improvement in separate areas of life as isolated goals. They want to become healthier, more productive, and more knowledgeable. They set targets for each area and try to push themselves toward those outcomes. For a short time, this effort may work. But eventually, the pressure builds, energy drops, and everything starts to fall apart. The problem is not the desire to improve. The problem is trying to manage everything through goals instead of building systems that support daily life. Health, productivity, and learning are not achievements. They are ongoing processes. They require consistency, not intensity. And consistency is only possible when there is a system that makes the right actions natural and repeatable. When you build systems in these areas, you stop treating them as separate challenges and start integrating them into your everyday routine. They become part of how you live, not tasks you struggle to complete. Health is often the first area where people rely too heavily on goals. They decide they want to lose weight, gain strength, or feel more energetic. They begin with strong motivation. They change their diet suddenly. They start intense workouts. They push themselves hard. But without a system, this approach is difficult to maintain. It depends on motivation, and motivation is not stable. When life becomes busy or energy drops, the effort fades. A system for health focuses on simple, repeatable behaviors. It is not about doing everything perfectly. It is about creating a pattern that you can follow every day. You decide on a consistent time for movement. It could be morning or evening, but it becomes part of your routine. You prepare your environment so that it is easy to begin. You do not rely on feeling ready. You rely on the structure you have created. You also build a system around your eating habits. Instead of making decisions in moments of hunger, you plan ahead. You make healthy choices easier by preparing your meals or keeping better options available. You reduce the presence of things that lead to poor decisions. Over time, these small actions create a strong foundation. You do not need to think about being healthy all the time. Your system takes care of it. Productivity works in a similar way. Many people struggle with productivity because they rely on bursts of effort. They wait until they feel motivated, and then they try to do as much as possible in a short time. This creates an uneven pattern where some days are very active and others are unproductive. A system creates stability. You define your most important tasks in advance. You decide when you will work on them. You create a routine that signals the start of focused work. This could be a specific time, a particular place, or a simple action that tells your mind it is time to begin. You also manage your environment to reduce distractions. You limit interruptions during your focused periods. You give your full attention to one task instead of trying to do many things at once. This approach may feel slower at first, but it leads to deeper and more consistent progress. Productivity is not about doing more things. It is about doing the right things regularly. When your system is clear, you do not waste energy deciding what to do next. You follow the structure you have already created. Learning is another area where systems are far more effective than goals. Many people set goals to learn something new. They decide to study a subject, develop a skill, or increase their knowledge. At the beginning, they feel excited. They gather resources. They plan to learn quickly. But without a system, their effort becomes inconsistent. They study when they feel interested, and they stop when they feel tired or distracted. This leads to slow progress and frustration. A system for learning focuses on regular exposure. You decide that learning will be part of your daily routine. It does not need to be long or intense. What matters is consistency. You create a time and space where you can focus on understanding, not rushing. You also remove pressure. Instead of trying to learn everything quickly, you allow knowledge to build gradually. You review what you have learned. You connect new ideas with previous understanding. This approach creates depth. Over time, your knowledge becomes stronger and more connected. You are not just collecting information. You are developing real understanding. To see how systems work across these areas, consider a person who wants to improve their overall life. At first, they may set multiple goals. Become fit, be more productive, learn new skills. They try to work on all of them at once. For a few days or weeks, they may feel progress. But without a system, their effort becomes scattered. They lose focus, and eventually they stop. Now imagine the same person building systems. For health, they create a daily routine for movement and simple eating habits that they can maintain. For productivity, they define their main tasks and create focused work periods with minimal distractions. For learning, they set aside time each day to study or read without pressure to move too fast. At first, the changes may seem small, but because these systems are repeated every day, they begin to shape the person's life. After some time, their energy improves because of their health system. Their work becomes more consistent because of their productivity system. Their understanding grows because of their learning system. The results are not sudden, but they are lasting. Another example can be seen in someone who struggles with balance. They focus too much on one area while neglecting others. They may work hard for a period, but ignore their health. Or they may try to learn something new, but lose track of their responsibilities. Without systems, it is easy for one area to take over. When they build systems, they create boundaries and structure. They allocate time for each important area. They ensure that no part of their life is completely ignored. This creates balance, not by forcing it, but by designing it into their routine. An important part of building systems in these areas is simplicity. If your system is too complex, it will be difficult to follow. If it requires too much effort to maintain, it will eventually break. A good system is clear and manageable. It fits into your life without creating unnecessary stress. It supports your actions instead of overwhelming you. You also need flexibility. Life is not always predictable. There will be days when your routine is disrupted. A strong system allows for adjustment. It does not collapse when something changes. It adapts. This flexibility is what makes systems sustainable. Health, productivity, and learning are not short-term projects. They are lifelong processes. Your system must be able to continue through different situations and phases of life. As you continue to follow your systems, you will notice something important. You no longer feel like you are chasing improvement. You feel like you are living it. Your actions become aligned with your goals, but you are no longer focused only on the results. You are focused on the process that creates those results. This removes a lot of stress. You are not waiting for a future moment to feel satisfied. You find satisfaction in the fact that you are following your system today. And as those days accumulate, your life begins to change in a steady and reliable way. This is the real power of systems. They do not promise instant results. They create lasting progress. And when applied to health, productivity, and learning, they build a life that continues to improve, not because of occasional effort. Chapter 5. Removing dependence on motivation. Motivation feels powerful. It creates a sudden burst of energy. It makes difficult tasks seem easier. It gives the impression that change is finally possible. Many people wait for this feeling before they take action, believing that motivation is the key to progress. But motivation is not reliable. It comes and goes without warning. Some days it is strong, and everything feels easy. Other days it disappears, and even simple tasks feel heavy. If your progress depends on motivation, then your progress will always be unstable. This is one of the main reasons why people struggle to stay consistent. They are not lacking ability. They are relying on something that is temporary. A system removes this dependence. It replaces the need for motivation with structure. It creates a way of acting that does not change based on how you feel. Instead of asking yourself if you are motivated, you follow a pattern that has already been decided. This shift is not about ignoring your emotions. It is about not allowing them to control your actions. When you depend on motivation, you give your feelings too much power. If you feel tired, you stop. If you feel distracted, you delay. If you feel bored, you quit. Over time, this creates a cycle where your behavior is always reacting to your mood. A system breaks this cycle. You decide in advance what actions matter, and you commit to them regardless of how you feel in the moment. This does not mean you push yourself to extremes. It means you continue, even in a small way, when motivation is low. Consistency is built in these moments. Anyone can act when they feel motivated. Real progress comes from acting when motivation is absent. One of the reasons motivation is so unreliable is that it is often tied to emotion and external circumstances. A good day can make you feel energized. A difficult day can drain your energy completely. If your system depends on these fluctuations, it will never remain stable. A system creates independence. It allows you to take action, even when your emotions are not supportive. Over time, this builds strength. You learn that you do not need to feel ready to begin. You only need to follow your structure. Another important point is that motivation often focuses on the outcome, not the process. When you feel motivated, you imagine the result you want to achieve. This creates excitement, but it can also create pressure. The gap between where you are and where you want to be becomes more visible. If progress feels slow, that excitement turns into frustration. A system removes this pressure by focusing on the present. You are not thinking about how far you still have to go. You are focused on what you need to do today. This makes action easier because it reduces the mental weight of the task. Instead of trying to achieve something big all at once, you are simply continuing your routine. This approach also changes how you respond to low-energy days. Without a system, a low-energy day often leads to inaction. You tell yourself that you will start tomorrow when you feel better. But tomorrow may feel the same, and the delay continues. With a system, a low-energy day becomes an opportunity to maintain the pattern. You may not perform at your best, but you still take action. Even a small effort keeps the system alive. This prevents the break in consistency that often leads to stopping completely. Over time, this builds momentum. Momentum does not come from intense effort. It comes from continuous movement. A system ensures that movement never fully stops. To understand this clearly, consider a person who wants to build a habit of working or studying regularly. If they rely on motivation, they will have days where they work with high energy and days where they do nothing. Their progress will be uneven, and they may feel frustrated by the lack of stability. Now consider a person who builds a system. They decide on a fixed time each day for their work. They create a simple starting routine. They remove distractions before they begin. They do not expect perfect focus or high energy. They only expect themselves to show up. On days when they feel motivated, they may work longer or with more intensity. On days when they feel tired, they may do less. But they still follow the system. After some time, their progress becomes steady. They are no longer dependent on how they feel. Their system carries them forward. Another example can be seen in someone trying to improve their physical health. If they depend on motivation, they may exercise intensely when they feel inspired and skip completely when they do not. This creates an inconsistent pattern that is difficult to maintain. With a system, they create a routine for movement that fits their life. They choose a time and a type of activity that is manageable. They remove barriers that make it difficult to start. They focus on showing up, not on being perfect. Even when they feel low energy, they still move in a small way. This keeps the habit alive and prevents the cycle of starting and stopping. Over time, their consistency leads to real improvement. This is how systems replace motivation. They do not remove the feeling of motivation completely. You will still have days where you feel energized and inspired. But those days become a bonus, not a requirement. Your progress no longer depends on waiting for the right feeling. It depends on following the structure you have created. There is also a deeper benefit to this approach. When you stop depending on motivation, you begin to develop discipline that is calm and steady. It is not loud or dramatic. It does not rely on excitement. It is quiet and consistent. This type of discipline is much more powerful because it lasts. It allows you to continue through different phases of life. It supports you when things are easy and when they are difficult. It creates a sense of control that does not come from forcing yourself, but from understanding how to structure your actions. You also begin to see yourself differently. Instead of thinking I need to feel motivated to act, you begin to think I act because this is part of my system. This shift strengthens your identity. You become someone who shows up regardless of mood. And once that identity is established, your actions become more natural. You no longer need to convince yourself every day. You simply continue. It is important to remember that removing dependence on motivation does not mean ignoring rest or recovery. There will be times when you need to slow down. A good system includes space for rest. The difference is that rest becomes intentional, not an excuse created by low motivation. You choose when to rest, just as you choose when to act. This balance keeps your system strong. In the end, motivation is useful, but it is not enough. It can start the journey, but it cannot carry you through it. A system carries you through. It creates consistency when motivation fades. It creates progress when energy is low. It creates stability in a world that is constantly changing. And once you understand this, you stop waiting for the perfect moment. You begin to act in the present, again and again, until action becomes part of who you are. Chapter 6. Real-life transformation through systems. Transformation is often imagined as something dramatic. People expect a moment where everything changes, where they suddenly become more disciplined, more focused, more successful. They wait for a breakthrough, a powerful realization, or a surge of motivation that will completely shift their life. But real transformation rarely looks like that. In reality, change is quiet. It is slow. It happens through small actions that repeat every day, often without immediate visible results. This is why many people overlook it. They are looking for something big, while the real process is happening in small steps. Systems are what make this kind of transformation possible. A system does not promise instant change. It creates a structure where change becomes inevitable over time. It focuses on what you do daily, not what you achieve occasionally. And because of that, it produces results that last. One of the most important things to understand is that transformation through systems is not about adding more effort. It is about directing your effort in a consistent way. When people try to change their life without a system, they often rely on intensity. They work very hard for a short period. They push themselves to the limit. But this approach is difficult to sustain. Eventually, they burn out or lose focus, and everything returns to the previous state. A system replaces intensity with consistency. It allows you to work at a steady pace. It removes the need for extreme effort. It builds progress layer by layer, day by day. At first, this may feel slow. You may not see immediate results. You may even feel like nothing is changing. But this is where patience becomes important. Systems create what can be called delayed results. Your actions today may not show visible outcomes immediately, but they are building something beneath the surface. Over time, these small efforts accumulate, and eventually, they reach a point where the results become noticeable. This is when transformation becomes visible. But it only happens because the system was followed consistently before the results appeared. Another important aspect of real-life transformation is that it affects multiple areas at once. When you build a system in one part of your life, it often influences other parts. For example, a system that improves your health can increase your energy. That energy can improve your productivity. Better productivity can create more time for learning or personal growth. This creates a chain effect. Instead of trying to fix everything at once, you build systems that support each other. Over time, your entire lifestyle begins to shift. Consider a person who feels stuck in their life. They lack direction. Their days feel unstructured. They want to improve, but they do not know where to start. They set goals, but they struggle to follow through. Without a system, their effort is scattered. Some days they try to work hard, but other days they do nothing. This creates frustration and self-doubt. Now imagine this person decides to build simple systems. They create a morning routine that gives structure to the start of their day. They set a fixed time for focused work. They include a small habit for learning or self-improvement. They do not try to change everything at once. They focus on consistency. In the beginning, the changes are small. Their life does not look dramatically different. But something important is happening. They are building stability. After a few weeks, their days feel more organized. After a few months, their habits feel more natural. After a longer period, their identity begins to change. They no longer see themselves as someone who is stuck. They see themselves as someone who takes action regularly. This is transformation. Not a sudden change, but a gradual shift in how they live and how they see themselves. Another example can be seen in someone who struggles with confidence. They may believe that confidence comes from achieving something big. They wait for a moment where they can prove themselves. But this approach often keeps them stuck because they avoid situations where they might fail. Without action, confidence cannot grow. Now imagine they build a system around small acts of courage. Each day, they do something slightly uncomfortable. It could be speaking up, sharing an idea, or taking initiative in a small way. These actions are not dramatic, but they are consistent. At first, it feels difficult. They may doubt themselves. But because they repeat these actions daily, something begins to change. They become more familiar with discomfort. They realize that fear does not stop them from acting. Over time, their confidence grows, not because of one big success, but because of many small actions. This is how systems create internal transformation. They do not just change what you achieve. They change how you think, how you respond, and how you see yourself. It is also important to understand that transformation through systems requires patience and trust. You need to trust the process, even when results are not immediately visible. This can be challenging, especially in a world that often focuses on quick outcomes. But lasting change does not happen quickly. It is built through repetition. Every time you follow your system, you are adding a small piece to your progress. On its own, each action may not seem significant, but together, they create something powerful. This is similar to how habits are formed. At first, they require effort and attention. But over time, they become automatic. Once a habit is established, it no longer feels like a task. It becomes part of your normal behavior. This is where systems become truly effective. They move actions from effort to habit. When that happens, maintaining progress becomes easier. You no longer need to remind yourself constantly. You no longer need to push yourself as hard. Your system supports you. There will still be challenges. There will be days when you feel tired, distracted, or unmotivated. There will be situations that disrupt your routine. But a strong system is flexible. It allows you to adjust without losing the overall pattern. You may do less on some days, but you do not stop completely. This ability to continue, even in a small way, is what keeps transformation moving forward. Over time, the gap between your old self and your new self becomes clear. You think differently. You act differently. You respond differently. And these changes are not temporary. They are the result of a system that has been followed consistently. In the end, real-life transformation is not about becoming a completely different person overnight. It is about becoming a slightly better version of yourself each day. And when those days accumulate, the difference becomes significant. Systems make this possible. They turn small actions into lasting change. They turn consistency into identity. They turn ordinary days into meaningful progress. And through that process, they create a life that is not based on occasional effort, but on a foundation that can. Chapter 7. How to design your own life system. Understanding systems is powerful, but real change begins when you build one for yourself. A system is not something you copy exactly from someone else. It is something you design based on your life, your responsibilities, your energy, and your direction. If a system does not fit your reality, it will not last. This is why many people fail, even when they try to follow good advice. They adopt routines that look effective, but do not match their environment or lifestyle. For a short time, they try to force it. Then slowly, the system breaks. Designing your own life system means creating something that works for you consistently, not something that looks impressive for a few days. The first step is clarity. You need to understand what truly matters in your life. Not what sounds good, not what others expect, but what you genuinely want to improve. This could be your health, your work, your learning, your discipline, or your overall direction. Without clarity, your system will feel scattered. Once you know your priorities, you simplify. A common mistake is trying to improve everything at once. This creates overload. Instead, focus on a few key areas and build systems around them. When those systems become stable, you can expand. Simplicity makes consistency possible. The next step is defining actions, not outcomes. A system is built on what you do daily, not what you hope to achieve. Instead of saying you want to succeed, you define what success looks like in terms of behavior. You decide what actions you will repeat every day or every week. These actions should be clear and specific. They should not require constant thinking. When it is time to act, you should already know what to do. Clarity reduces resistance. After defining actions, you create structure. You decide when these actions will take place. You connect them to your daily routine. This could be in the morning, during a specific work period, or at the end of the day. Timing matters because it removes uncertainty. If you leave everything open, it becomes easy to delay. When your actions have a place in your day, they are more likely to happen. Your environment also plays a key role. A strong system is supported by surroundings that make the right actions easier and the wrong actions harder. If your environment is full of distractions, your focus will suffer. If your environment supports your habits, your consistency will improve. You do not need to control everything, but small adjustments can make a big difference. For example, keeping your workspace clean and simple can improve focus. Preparing what you need in advance can reduce the effort required to start. The goal is to remove friction. Another important element is starting small. Many people design systems that are too demanding. They expect themselves to perform at a high level every day. This creates pressure and leads to inconsistency. A better approach is to start with actions that are easy to repeat. You are not trying to prove your strength. You are trying to build a pattern. Once the pattern is stable, you can increase the level gradually. Growth should feel natural, not forced. Consistency is more important than intensity. You also need to build flexibility into your system. Life is not predictable. There will be days when your routine is disrupted. If your system is too rigid, it will break when something changes. A flexible system allows adjustment. If you cannot follow your full routine, you still do a smaller version. This keeps the pattern alive. It prevents the feeling of starting over. This is important because many people lose progress not because of one bad day, but because that day turns into many. Your system should protect against that. Reflection is another key part of designing your system. You need to observe what is working and what is not. This does not mean judging yourself harshly. It means understanding your patterns and making adjustments. If something feels too difficult, simplify it. If something is not effective, change it. If something works well, strengthen it. Your system should evolve with you. It is not fixed. It improves over time. To understand how this works in real life, consider a person who wants to bring structure into their day. At first, their routine is unorganized. They wake up at different times. They start tasks without a plan. They get distracted easily. They feel busy but not productive. Instead of setting a vague goal to be more productive, they design a system. They decide on a consistent time to start their day. They create a simple morning routine that prepares them for focus. They choose a few important tasks for each day and assign them specific time periods. They reduce distractions during those periods. They do not try to make everything perfect. They focus on following the structure. In the beginning, it may feel different. But after repeating this system daily, their life begins to feel more organized. Their productivity becomes stable. They no longer rely on random bursts of effort. Another example can be seen in someone who wants to improve their overall lifestyle. They feel that their days lack balance. They spend too much time on unimportant activities and not enough on things that matter. They want to change, but they do not know how. They begin by designing simple systems. They create a small routine for health, a fixed time for focused work, and a short period for learning or reflection. They do not overload themselves. They choose actions that they can repeat daily. They also adjust their environment by reducing distractions and preparing for their routines in advance. Over time, these small systems begin to shape their day. They feel more in control. Their time is used more intentionally. Their life becomes more aligned with what they value. This is how personal systems create real change. It is not about perfection. It is about alignment. Your actions begin to match your intentions. There is also an important mindset shift in designing your own system. You stop looking for quick results. You start focusing on long-term consistency. You understand that progress will take time. You accept that some days will be better than others. You commit to the process instead of chasing immediate outcomes. This mindset removes pressure. You are not trying to succeed in one moment. You are building something that will continue to grow. In the end, designing your own life system is about taking control of your daily actions. It is about creating a structure that supports who you want to become. It is about making progress a natural part of your life, not something that depends on occasional effort. When your system is clear, simple, and consistent, everything else begins to follow. Your habits become stronger. Your focus becomes clearer. Your discipline becomes natural. And your results, instead of being uncertain, become a reflection of the system you live by. This is how you move from intention to action. This is how you build a life that is not based on temporary motivation, but on a foundation that continues to grow every day. Chapter 8. Sustaining Systems for Lifelong Growth. Building a system is powerful, but sustaining it is where real mastery begins. Many people are able to start strong. They create routines, they feel focused, and they follow their structure for a period of time. But after some weeks or months, something begins to shift. The routine feels repetitive. Life becomes busy. Unexpected situations appear. Slowly, the system weakens. This is where most people stop. Not because their system was wrong, but because they did not learn how to sustain it. A system is not meant to work only when everything is perfect. It is meant to work through change, difficulty, and uncertainty. If it cannot survive real-life conditions, it is not a complete system. Sustaining a system requires a different mindset. At the beginning, excitement carries you forward. Everything feels new. You are focused on building something better. But over time, that excitement fades. The system becomes normal. It loses the feeling of novelty. This is where many people lose interest. They mistake the loss of excitement for a loss of value. But in reality, this is the point where the system begins to do its real work. When something becomes normal, it no longer requires effort to maintain. It becomes part of your identity. This is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that the system is working. Growth is not always exciting. Sometimes it feels repetitive. Sometimes it feels quiet. But this repetition is what creates long-term results. To sustain a system, you need to shift your focus from excitement to commitment. Excitement starts the process. Commitment continues it. Commitment means you continue even when the system feels ordinary. You continue even when you do not see immediate results. You continue because you understand that consistency over time is what creates transformation. Another important part of sustaining systems is accepting imperfection. No system will be followed perfectly every day. There will be mistakes. There will be missed days. There will be moments where you lose focus. The mistake is not in failing. The mistake is in stopping completely. A strong system allows recovery. If you miss a day, you return the next day. If you lose focus, you reset and continue. You do not allow small breaks to turn into long periods of inaction. This ability to return quickly is what keeps the system alive. Perfection creates pressure. Recovery creates progress. Flexibility is also essential. Your life will change over time. Your responsibilities will grow. Your environment may shift. A system that works today may need adjustment in the future. This does not mean your system is failing. It means it is evolving. You need to observe your routines and adjust them when necessary. If something becomes too difficult to maintain, simplify it. If something no longer serves your goals, replace it. A system is not fixed. It is designed to grow with you. This is what makes it sustainable. Another key factor is balance. If your system is too demanding, it will eventually lead to burnout. If it leaves no space for rest, enjoyment, or flexibility, it will become a burden. A sustainable system includes recovery. It allows time for rest without breaking the overall structure. It creates a rhythm between effort and recovery. This rhythm keeps your energy stable and prevents exhaustion. You are not trying to push yourself constantly. You are trying to maintain a steady pace. This steady pace is what allows long-term growth. To understand this more clearly, consider a person who builds a strong system for work and productivity. At first, they follow their routine strictly. They work long hours and stay highly focused. For some time, this leads to progress. But if they do not include balance, they may start to feel tired and overwhelmed. Their energy drops, and their system becomes difficult to maintain. Eventually, they stop. Now imagine they adjust their system. They still maintain focused work periods, but they include time for rest and recovery. They allow their system to breathe. This balance makes it easier to continue over a long period. Their progress may feel slower in the short term, but it becomes sustainable. Another example can be seen in someone who builds a system for personal growth. They create routines for learning, reflection, and improvement. At first, they are highly engaged. They follow everything strictly. But over time, they may feel overwhelmed by the effort. If they try to maintain the same intensity, they may lose consistency. Instead, they adjust their system. They keep the core habits, but reduce unnecessary complexity. They focus on what truly matters. This makes their system lighter and easier to follow. As a result, they continue for a longer time, and their growth becomes deeper. This is the difference between short-term effort and long-term sustainability. Another important element in sustaining systems is meaning. If your system feels empty, you will eventually lose interest. You need to understand why you are following it. Not in a dramatic way, but in a clear and personal way. Your system should connect to something that matters to you. When your actions have meaning, it becomes easier to continue, even when motivation is low. You are not just following a routine. You are building something that has value in your life. Over time, this meaning becomes part of your identity. You no longer question why you are doing it. It becomes natural. There is also a point where your system begins to operate almost automatically. At this stage, you do not need to think about your actions as much. Your habits guide you. Your routines feel normal. This is where systems become powerful. But even at this stage, awareness is important. You need to remain conscious of your system. You need to make sure it is still aligned with your direction. You need to refine it when necessary. Growth does not stop. Your system should continue to improve as you improve. In the end, sustaining a system is not about maintaining perfection. It is about maintaining continuity. You keep going. You adjust when needed. You return when you drift. This steady approach creates something that cannot be achieved through short bursts of effort. It creates long-term growth. Your progress becomes stable. Your habits become strong. Your identity becomes clear. And your life begins to reflect the system you follow, not just occasionally, but every day. This is what makes systems truly life-changing. Not just because they help you improve for a short time, but because they stay with you, support you, and grow with you for the conclusion, the life that comes from systems. Everything in this journey leads to one simple realization. Your life is not shaped by occasional effort. It is shaped by repeated behavior. Not what you do once in a moment of motivation, but what you do consistently when no one is watching and when motivation is not present. This is where systems change everything. Goals give direction, but they are temporary. They point you toward a destination, but they do not guarantee the path you take every day. Systems, on the other hand, build the path itself. They turn your life into a structure that moves forward, whether you feel motivated or not. When you rely only on goals, your success depends on emotional highs. When you rely on systems, your success depends on stability. And stability is what creates long-term transformation. A system does something deeper than help you achieve results. It reshapes your identity. It changes how you see yourself through repetition. Every time you follow your system, you reinforce a version of yourself that is disciplined, focused, and consistent. At first, this change is small, almost invisible. But over time, it becomes your normal way of living. You stop asking if you feel ready. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You stop restarting your life again and again. Instead, you continue from where you are. This is the quiet power of systems. They remove unnecessary struggle. They reduce internal conflict. They replace uncertainty with structure. And through that structure, they create progress that does not depend on chance. There will always be distractions. There will always be difficult days. There will always be moments when things do not go as planned. But a system does not break because of a single imperfect day. It continues through adjustment, not collapse. This is what makes it sustainable. Life becomes less about dramatic change and more about steady direction. You are no longer chasing a better version of yourself through sudden effort. You are building that version through daily action. One small step at a time. One repeated behavior at a time. One system at a time. And as these systems stay in place, something powerful happens. Your actions become consistent. Your habits become automatic. Your identity becomes stable. Your results become natural. You are no longer relying on motivation to carry your life forward. You are relying on structure. And structure is far more reliable than emotion. In the end, the real shift is simple but profound. You stop trying to change your life through goals alone. You start designing your life through systems. And once that shift happens, everything begins to align. Not because life becomes easier, but because you become consistent within it. That is where real transformation begins. And that is where it continues. The end.